All right, I'm here with the awesome Mr. William Mark McCullough. Mark has worked with the biggest names in Hollywood, from Tom Cruise, Ron Howard, Glenn Close, Amy Adams, John Cusack, Nicolas Cage. Anyway, that list goes on. I like to call Mark what I am as well, as a bit of a slasher here in Hollywood. Actor, writer, director, producer, lawyer, promo ho. That's his words, not mine. And today, I want to cover a lot of stuff. I was showing him just a second ago before we started going. I've got a few pages of information that we're probably not going to get to all of it. So we'll get to hang out again later, which is great because I had the pleasure of working with Mark on a movie called A Savannah Haunting, which we can talk about really quick anyway. But yeah, that's where Mark and I met, and I'm gonna pass it to him and. And let's jump into our introduction to each other of what you told me after you were leaning towards booking me.
The callback.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. So we all thought that Dean was awesome, but that he looked a little too young for the role. So he's doing his callback. He does an amazing job, and we bring this up. They're like, "Hey, would you be willing to maybe dye your beard a little bit or something?" And he says, "1 second." He just lowers himself out of frame and stands back up with gray in his beard. And we're like, "Okay, perfect." I just love that story. Man. It's so great.
And the pleasure of getting to work with Mark. So I mentioned all of the different slashes that you have. Mark also, I like to say coaches actors, but I'd love to reword that as mentors actors more than anything. Because while, both of us have that enjoyment of getting to help people understand what this craft is, um, it's it's not as much coaching. I feel like a lot of what we're doing is trying to help people get rid of all the bullshit that they think acting is to begin with. And we're
Mhm.
kind of helping them get back to, hey, let's find you again. Let's get you intertwined with this character we're playing with and bring that truth out. And that was one of the biggest pleasures that I had working with Mark was that from the director POV, he still had that acting coach side that was like, let me give you things to help you bring you to the table and not like, here's the way you need to do it. How have you handled being on set with the directors that are more that the ones that are like this is exactly how I want it done.
That's not fun, And my thing, here's my deal: as an actor on set, I want to be the easiest person on set that they work with. And it's funny because Dean, I was talking to one of the producers about you earlier today and how much we loved your work, and I've told you many times, when I was editing the movie, I remember sending you a text probably late at night saying, if I'm ever to call back for a role and you walk in for the same role, I'm standing up and walking the fuck out. Because every take, I could just go to your take. Like I just did take 2, take 3, take 4. You're just consistently good. Um, but as an actor on set, I want to be easy. And I know you're a filmmaker, you're an actor, and you were so easy to work with, right? Which talent's fantastic, but being easy to work with is even better. However, there are times when a director just has a very different vision for the character or the scene than you do. In my experience, it has tended to be TV where the director wasn't involved in the casting process. I was cast 6 weeks ago. Director wasn't even hired at the time, and he or she comes in, right for the episode, and they just view it very differently. At the end of the day, you've got 2 choices, 3. Try to change their mind, do what they want, or quit. And since my bills don't stop coming in, I'm not to quit. But it is frustrating, and I've definitely had strong conversations with directors who had a very particular idea of a character, and especially the kind of characters that I tend to play. I know them really, really well because I play them a lot. And even though in real life I'm not anything like most of the characters I play, I know those people. I grew up around those people. I know how those people tick, and I know the truthfulness of those people, right? And many times when there's an issue, and again, it doesn't happen very often, but when there is an issue, it's because you have someone out of LA who is taking a very Hollywood approach to a character that's not based in authenticity and truth, and it becomes tough. But you know, you either do it or you quit. You know, it's really what the end result is. But I know for me, you know, I love the way you use the word mentor, because that's definitely there are a lot of great actors out there, and there's a lot of great acting coaches out there. I definitely don't put myself in the great actor category. What I am good at is I've gotten rid of all the bullshit that we kind of accumulate as we grow up that makes us feel uncomfortable in front of a camera. And that when I started acting made me want to be someone else because I didn't think that who I was worthy. That's really what it boils down to. And I think a lot of actors go into acting because they're looking for validation and they don't believe that who they are is enough. And, you know, my Wi-Fi here at my house, the password, if anyone ever wants to park outside my house and steal it, is I am enough, right? I want constant reminders that who I am is good enough with all my huge list of flaws. And my God, anyone knows me knows I got a lot of them, but I just bring them with me. You know, I don't hide them. I'm like, here they are. And so when I'm helping out an actor with an audition or teaching a class or whatever, I always say, like, start from a place of truthfulness and start from you. You know, I'm finishing a class this coming week. I haven't been able to teach in a long time because of strikes. I have time to teach. And I told this one actor, he came into a scene that was he did a good job, but he was obviously playing a character. I was like, you did a nice job of that. You know, I could go black box theater and watch that. Be fantastic. Come back next week and bring me you. Because I can guarantee you are going to be way more powerful and magnetic than this creation that you just presented to me of what you were thinking would be interesting. You did a good job with that. But nothing beats us just kind of saying, here we are, you know, take it, leave it, whatever. It's what I am. And I know from a director's perspective, like you just came in and man, you brought Dean, and Dean was fucking perfect, you know? So yeah, I very much like the fact that we come from very similar perspectives on that.
I kind of word it when I'm coaching. Because I'm the same way. If I want you to, I don't want you to go, you know, build character outside of you. I've had coaches where they're kind of like, we go through a list of here's all the things like you, here's all the things that the character is not like you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even touch the not like yous. I
Right.
tend to like, okay, this mofo likes Skittles. I can start there. I love Skittles, right? I
Right.
just want to find this common ground first and then build from there. And I would always say that I'm not going to, you know, build or become character. It's like I've got the closet over here that's full of all of my bullshits. My
Mm-hmm.
my good guy, my bad guy. We've all got the devil and the angel, the full swath of them. But a lot of us, like you said, had periods of time in our life that we locked those mofos up in the closet. We were like, all right, nobody likes him.
Mm-hmm.
I became this because all my friends slowly tailored me into it.
Right.
So I kept putting them in the closet, and now I want to go. And this is what I loved about acting class was, you know, you jumped into enough of these characters, or at least what you thought you were doing, that you got to play out portions of yourself without realizing that you're actualizing these pieces of you that you put away. And my coach was pretty good about, you know, aiming you in the direction where he was like, I feel like that you need to play in this zone for a little while to get comfortable. And now I like to say that I get everybody out of the closet, pass out tequila, we all have shots, we hang out, we get to know each other.
Right.
But then when we go on like a road trip, everybody goes in the back seat. I'll let whoever come up and sit if I want to, but they don't get to pick the snacks. They don't touch the radio. You know, there's like the badass little kids you put back there. And you're like, no, you sit in the back. When we get there, I'll let you loose.
Yeah.
So it's like we all have those people, and for me, that was the thing. It was like let's find that piece of us, because while you said you know those types of guys, there's also a piece of Mark that obviously is in there that you get to tap into that just resonates with those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, you know, I always tell people, like, if you run into me at an ice cream shop and I have my 12-year-old niece, you're going to see me, right? My silly, stupid, you know, self that loves to embarrass her every chance I get, right? You're going to see truthful and authentic Mark. And if me and my niece are walking down an alleyway and a dude steps out with a knife, he is also going to see a truthful and authentic Mark. It's going to be a different part of Mark than what you see at the ice cream shop, right? So we have all these things inside of us that we can tap into. People often ask me, because I play a lot of similar characters, if I get bored. I'm like, I don't get bored in life, right? I mean, life, it's me. It's just the circumstances of day-to-day living change constantly, especially having all those slashes, I mean, it's a lot of different things, but it's still me. It's just each circumstance brings out a different part of who I am. And that's kind of my approach to acting. It's just, and my approach to working with actors is giving them the opportunity to bring out their particular thing in that imaginary circumstance.
I want to circle back around to for my version of what I call reincarnation, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to come back to the when you said the authentic Mark, because one of the things that when I first met you, that was the immediate thing that I felt was the bullshit was non-existent. Not in
Mm-hmm.
a negative, not in a positive, just that you were present with me and I got all of whatever that was.
Right.
I, there aren't even people in like the spiritual world that I can sit with that has enough presence and comfortability with themselves that they can just be present with me. And I find that piece right there is what almost every powerful actor tends to have. That
Mm-hmm.
presence that they are okay with whatever this is. Not that you can watch TV all day long and see actors that work.
Sure.
You don't really have to be good to
Right.
work.
Mm-hmm.
You can be mediocre as long as you can get your lines and do what is required on the page. But
Right.
that next level, that area of like feeling each other when you're actually on set. I would always say, like, if I'm with a really good actor or actress, I should be able to close my eyes or turn my back. I should be able to feel them of
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. We resonate that way.
Right.
So circling back to reincarnation, which for me, I'm using reincarnation in the words of we have reinvented ourselves X amount of times throughout our lives. What was original Mark? Because you and I actually kind of came from a very similar background as well. I wasn't raised in a money household or any of that stuff. We were both raised in the South. Uh, had interesting dads, which you can go into later if you like. Um, but what was the initial Mark before he realized that reincarnation had to happen?
Well, what happened for me, and I think this happens for a lot of folks, is, I grew up with my mom, and she was a loving mom, hardworking mom, but a poor mom, right? We lived in like kind of string of trailer parks, and what happens is often with young kids is they're brutal, right? And the way it is, and
Yeah.
anything they can find to, like, I guess it doesn't change because, and when I was in DC, if you met someone, they would know which law school you went to so they could quickly put it in order. If you're in LA, what have you been on or who you rep by? So, people always want to like peg people. But
Yeah.
what ended up happening is I realized much, much later that I had created this internal sense of I wasn't good enough. I wasn't as good as these other people who had money. Right. Now, the funny thing is, in my young mind, I thought they were rich. And of course, now, I'm like, they were barely making more money than we were. They just, from my perspective, they were rich. They certainly were not rich. But,
You guys go out to dinner?
whoa,
Where?
you've been, what? Yeah, it's crazy. So what I ended up doing is, I got out of high school and I went to college and I put a mask on because I thought that mask would hide the ugly parts, the poor parts, the trailer trash parts, right? And I carried that mask with me for way too long. And I was so afraid of it coming off and people seeing the real me that I thought wasn't worthy. And I know it's the reason I went to acting because I was thinking, I can be someone else. I can step outside of this guy who, look where he came from. There's nothing special about him. And what happened for me is, I kept, when I was pursuing acting, and I was, not successfully, I was doing a ton of short films and student films and low budget feature films that I hope no one ever finds on the internet, because they were horrible. And I was
The
playing all the,
glory of VHS, right?
oh yeah. But I was playing a bunch of characters, right? With trying to hide the real me. And really what happened, a couple of folks came into my life. They kind of had an impact. My dad passing away definitely had an impact. He was the most authentic human being I've ever met in my life. I remember I was working for a senator on Capitol Hill, and my dad came to DC to meet me. And he's like, "Oh, I'll come to the office and pick you up for lunch." I'm like, "No, Dad, that's okay. That's okay." He came anyway. I remember he walks in and he's wearing like a black duster and he's got the long hair and the beard. I'm like, "Oh dear God." He looked like literally he's an outlaw and got off a horse.
We're going to both get arrested.
Yeah, but that was just dad, what I mean? But what I noticed with my dad is it didn't matter if he was talking to a senator or the waitress at Waffle House. He was the same. And people liked him and respected him, right? Like my mom and dad had divorced when I was 2. Years later, I was in college. My mom's grandmother passed away. She was a super religious woman. She had requested my dad be one of the pallbearers because she so respected him. Even though she disagreed with many of his choices in life, she knew that when he gave his word and who he was, it was who he was. So the first thing that happened was my dad passed away, and it made me really look at my life. And I thought, like my dad's someone that I had huge respect for, and I admired the way he moved through the world, but I did not choose to move through the world that way. I moved through the world from a place of fear. He moved through the world from a place of quiet confidence that came from love, right? And then I was at a film festival, and I ran into a casting associate who I didn't know in person. I had done a bunch of taped auditions for, and we just start chatting. And she tells me, hey, I've seen probably 100 of your auditions. I'm like, yeah. She goes, you get some callbacks every once in a while. I was like, yeah. She goes, but you never booked the job. I was like, yeah. She goes, you don't know why? I was like, I'd love to. She goes, because you're a pretty good actor. It's like, well, I thought that's the point. She goes, here's the deal. She goes, you're pretty good at creating these characters that every once in a while you get a call back. She goes, but you're never going to beat the dude who is that. You can't fake what he is. She goes, I've seen 100 auditions. I have no idea what Mark brings to the table. She goes, next audition you do for me, just bring Mark to the table. And I think those two things kind of hit me. And I realized, because I remember I was in college studying theater, my theater professor had told me I absolutely had to get rid of my Southern accent. Now, I didn't have that beautiful blue blood Savannah accent. I had the trailer park accent. And
Right.
he pounded it into me to get rid of that accent. And what's so funny is probably 75% of my bookings now are with that trailer park accent that I worked so hard to get rid of. But what I found is once I took the mask off and just realized, and it was life-changing for me when I made that determination that who I am is good enough, period. Doesn't mean that I don't try to strive to fix my flaws and work on them, but I fully acknowledge that who I am right here, right now is fine. When I made that determination, it changed everything. Like I used to have social anxiety disorder. So I'd go to parties or events. I'd have to drink to like self-medicate because I was so afraid of that mask slipping down. But once I took that mask off and said, fuck it, guys, this is what you get. I didn't have to drink anymore. I didn't have any social anxiety. It just was gone. And I started going to auditions, and it's like, I'm just going to walk in, right? I'm just going to be me. And what I find, and you've probably done some yourself, like we used to go to pitch meetings, right? We go into agencies or networks or whatever to pitch projects. They have them slotted for 15-minute increments to kind of scroll through them. And I'd go in there with my mask on, and I'd get a 15-minute pitch meeting. And once I took that mask off and just said, I don't care what room I'm in, this is what they're getting. All the time, we go into meetings now, and 3 hours later, the secretary will come in and say, excuse me, we got 6 people waiting. We got to end this meeting, right? Because there's something about authenticity that resonates with people. And, when I used to go on dates, years ago, I would give them the best mark that I thought they wanted. Right now, I might could keep that up for a month, maybe, maybe. And so after a month, if they like that fake bullshit dude that I gave them, they're out of luck in a month because I can't stick to it, right? But then once it became that the mask came off, what they got in the first 10 minutes of a coffee date was what they would have 5 years later, right? It's just that. And it just, I mean, I talk to people about this a lot because it just changed every aspect of my life. And it was caused by my pursuit of acting, but it resonated with everything. The way I interact with people, my friends, my family, strangers, the way I move into a room. And it just took all of that fear and worry and sense of like, oh my God, what do they think about me? Do they like me? And it just removed it. And now I just don't give a shit.
My similar story to that was that my manager, I think it was with Burlstein Gray at the time, and he called and was like, "Hey, you got blah blah blah." I was like, "All right, cool, I'll go in for it." And then after the audition, he called me. He was like, "Hey, they said they loved you, thought you were great. They want you to go back." Their reply was that they don't think you know how good looking you are. What do you want me to do with that? Like, okay. So he's like, just sit with it, figure out what that means to you, and bring that back in. I'm like, okay. And I think I was, 21, 22 or something.
Right.
Still playing characters, right? And I remember going back to the audition, doing my thing, and oop, gotcha. There we go. All right. Yeah, I remember going back to the audition, doing my thing for the callbacks, and like I would like unlocked my car and was getting in the door, and manager calls. It was fast. Maybe it's good news.
Right.
No. Answered the phone, like, "Hey, what did you do?" I acted good looking. Well, they said you were pretty good, but you were kind of a douchebag. Aren't most good looking guys douchebags though? Oh, shit. Okay. I'll work on that. So that was one of my initial realizations of like, fuck. Okay, maybe I am playing character, which it didn't completely resonate. And I remember I was in class, Aaron Spizers, who I was with for a long time, and I had just finished a scene in his like medium level class, not his master class, and I had finished the scene. He sat back and he goes, "Dean," and he reminds me of Billy Crystal. So imagine Billy Crystal going, "Dean, I think you're one of the best actors I have." What the fuck does that mean? Okay, I feel like you've got more. Like, no, no. He's like, "I'm serious. You're one of the best actors I have." I was like, "Oh, I heard it. Okay." He's like, "I just, it took me this long to realize that you're still acting with me." He's like, "And usually people don't get past my beginner class with that. So props to you on that." I was like, "All right, that was a wonderful backhanded compliment."
Right.
But I got your point. And the next time I brought it in, that was it. I realized, I had that realization of that, what I like to call the on button.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it a lot with theater actors,
Oh, yeah.
not hating on theater, but there's that, as soon as you step on the stage, there's the on button that
Yep.
that happens.
Yeah.
Right. They're ready and they're now character.
Right.
And I had started doing that with students as well, as I would say, let's don't touch that fucking button.
Right.
Don't touch it. Just, you're here with me right now. Let's just slide into the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
of having the conversation.
Yeah.
And then it started affecting, right? It started hitting us more. So on that same note, how did you go about because I think that's if people can hone that and realize what that essence is that truly is them, and find one, especially if you come from again a theater background where you've gotten used to that feeling right, like when
Mhm.
you've done that long enough, that is acting to you. That's doing a good job. And
Right.
you almost have to find a way to break that resonance of going, let me let go of what I think this is supposed to be.
Hmm.
How did you go about then practicing your daily life of finding, okay, this is me, and I'm not going to put the mask on, because most people have no choice. The mask just consistently flips to,
Hmm.
the mask I wear at work, the mask I wear at home, the mask I wear with my crazy friends, the mask I wear with my nice friends. What was it for you that you were able to kind of bring into a daily practice to keep you finding that?
It's interesting, man. It was almost like Saul's road to Damascus experience. When it hit me, what I had been doing, it hit me. And everybody's different. Obviously, everybody has a different journey. But for me, when I realized, truly wrapped my mind around the idea that I don't have to wear this mask and I'm good enough to walk into any room, I just never felt a need to put it back on. Um, Now, I've worked with a lot of people that didn't happen to them. I also had some pretty big life. Again, losing my dad was such a huge, impactful moment that I think it kind of supercharged that transition for me. Um, but I know that because I'd always had the same thing. Like I'd hear the word action. It's like, now it's time to act. And the number of times I've like done acting classes with students where we were filming it and I would take their scene and they would say, and I give them feedback. Hey, this is kind of bullshit. This is fake. Give me your real you. They're like, no, that is the way I am. So I then record them and not tell them I was recording them while we were just chatting. I'm like, all right, now let's get ready to go whenever you're ready. And I'd show it to them and they'd see that fake transition happen, right? And this is probably happened to you out in LA. Like I remember when I was in acting classes, and I took a lot of bad acting classes when I first got to LA, where everything was more emotion, bigger, and you kind of get this mentality of acting class acting, right? Like
Yeah.
everything is over the top. And I know I'd go to a coffee shop and I'd see two people obviously running a scene at a table, and I just be like, wow. That's so dramatic, and I can see their arcs, and oh my, I bet his objective is this. Oh, and I can see their beat. Right? I'm just so enamored and think they're doing a great job, right? Of course, at the time, I was not working professionally, right? Not at all.
Right.
And now, if I'm in LA, it's because I'm working professionally on some TV show or film, whatever. And I'll stop in a coffee shop and I'll see the same thing. And I'm just like, oh, you poor kids. Like, I can tell you're acting. You know what I mean? Like, I should come over and go, is there a problem, ma'am? Is he bothering you? Or
Right. Yeah.
why don't you guys get a room? Or can you take us? It should just be real. And when you see it, it's just so clear. Fake presentation versus authentic being alive and in the moment. Like I found even with conversations, right? Like so, I have a lot of female friends who have conversations in a different way than most men do. Like you and I can hang out and talk all night, and we'll use a lot of declarative sentences and stay pretty on track what we're talking about, right? I have lovely female friends who their conversation style is very different than mine, right? And but here's the promise I make to everyone that I talk to. They get 100% of my attention, right? I am there. Because of that, I feel I have the right to tell someone they go off on a big tangent. Hey, Joni, you're losing me, right? Like, let's come back. Let's come back to this thing we're talking
Yeah.
about right here. Because I think just learning to be present and like I definitely have friends that you'll be talking to for 2 minutes and you finish and they go, I'm sorry, what was that? And they weren't there, right? And I just found like being present in my daily life, truly being present. I remember when I was getting started in acting, I hear that be in the moment. I didn't know what that really meant. It was
No
just
one has a
words.
clue at the. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck does be in the moment? What? And now I know it inside and out. It's just be there, right? Just be there and be connected to the other person in life or in a scene. And it's interesting. I'm sure this is your experience. When I'm on set working with some A-list actor, and we're just chatting, between takes. We're chatting, and I hear, roll sound, roll camera, all right, and action. Generally speaking, we just keep chatting. We're just now chatting with words that are on paper, right? But there almost never do I see this shift. Now we're acting. Yeah, we're just going to continue having a conversation. And again, that's one of the things that I love about your acting is it's just seamless for me. When I watch you, I can watch you during a scene, and then we call cut, and then obviously you run a few, 30 seconds afterwards. It's still just you. Like there's no difference, man. It's just magic. It's magic. But as far as like how to do it on a day-to-day basis, I don't know, because for me it was just like this blazing explosion of my mind that I can just go to that point. And it was like a fork in the road that took me in a different direction.
Mm. There was one of the first books that I ever heard explain what the present moment is better than any acting book, because and I think we've chatted about this a little bit. For me, this whole acting and spirituality and life thing is such an interesting little tied up combination, because obviously with acting we are, and this is kind of a cool way that I've figured out in my head, but the closest thing to playing God would be that I could create a world and then create the circumstances, the entities, and everything going on inside of it. And those individuals on the inside of it would have no clue that I had any control of what that is. But what is it that we do when we're acting? We create a full on world. We create a human that we get to embody that should have no clue that we have control over that whatsoever. Hell, we don't even realize we have control over it once we're in it.
Right.
That's what that moment is. It's that, I call it the edge of creation. If we had to kind of put a verbalization of what being of living in the moment and what free will would be, I would say that is that present moment. I have the free will to give my attention to whoever or whatever, but I only have that attention. There's not really anything else to it. It's the attention. Can I listen to the human with me, or am I in my own thing? If you pick up your fucking phone during our conversation, I just stop talking. I'm just gonna wait. Why'd you stop? You stopped. You left me. And I love that the way this guy put it. Have you ever read anything from Eckhart Tolle?
No, I don't think so.
There's a book called A New Earth. He has two. One's called The Power. He has, I don't know how many now, but there's A New Earth and then The Power of Now. And that was kind of what his focus is. He's kind of a, for lack of better words, a spiritual guru. And his focus is on helping you find that present moment. Michelle lovingly hates it because I used to listen to him on like road trips driving to Los Angeles and back, and he talks like this. And she's like, "Oh my God, how are you not sleeping while you're driving?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I was listening." What? She's like, "Oh God." But I always find the interest in the scene work of when you can have that moment where they don't say anything. That's where everybody finds, like, have you booked one of those auditions where they're like, "Oh my God, that moment where you were just like so in it," and you're like, "Fuck, what is my line?"
Yeah. I got a great story about that actually when you're done.
No, go for it.
So I'd had an audition, a self-tape audition a few years ago, and did it, got a call back, and it was for a huge casting office out in LA for this film about a group of bad guys who take a girl hostage, and the plan is they're gonna get what they want and then set her free. Well, the guys, my buddies, leave her with me, my character, not realizing that my character is insane. And so while they're gone, I kill her and cut her open to see what she looks like inside, right? And the scene is them returning, finding this woman dismembered and freaking out, and they ask me why I did it, and I tell them why. So I do the self-tape as if I'm talking to you about going to Target and getting some new socks, right? Just having a conversation. So I get a call back, fly out to LA to do a call back, and I think the casting director, the director, writer, and one of the producers in the room doing the scene. Halfway through the scene, I forget my lines, which I never worry about because in real life, I often don't know what to say, right? So I'm like, I don't, whatever. So I just kind of look off for like probably 5 or 10 seconds until I remember my line and I continue the scene. So I leave. 3 hours later, my manager sends me an email, forwards me an email from the casting director. And it says, "Oh my God, Mark is terrifying." Halfway through the scene, he looked off and we could all imagine the terrible things going through his mind. And what was going through my mind is, what is my next line? so, yeah. But one of the things too, I think it's this thing that we get as we grow up where we care what other people think, right? So I remember a few years ago, I had two little nieces here in acting class. They weren't in class. I was babysitting them. And so they were just like, they were in the front of the room behind me. So basically all the students could see them, but they were just playing. And it was a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. Now the 6-year-old, she had not reached that point in life where she gave two shits what anybody thought about what she was doing with her make-believe. And I just glanced over my shoulder and I could see she was absolutely lost in this world she had created with make-believe. Even though there's 20 people, they weren't staring at her, but they're staring in her direction, right? The 9-year-old, though, had reached that point in life where she did care. So as she's trying to do her make-believe, I'm watching her constantly look over her shoulder to see what everybody in the room thought about what she was doing with her make-believe, right? And it dawned on me, I was like, my God, like the 6-year-old's doing what we all should do as actors, which is just get lost in the world we're creating and not give two fucks what anybody else thinks about it, right? But what most of us do is what the 9-year-old does, where we're just so worried. So I know for me, like when we used to have in-person auditions and callbacks, and even now when I'm on set, I don't say this out loud, but when I'm talking to the director or the casting director or whomever, in my mind, I'm saying over and over, I don't care what you think about what I'm about to do, right? I just say it over and over and over. I don't care what note they're giving me. I'm saying that. And it's to constantly remind myself that I can't be in a world of play if I'm trying to please someone, right? The great thing about film and TV is they're going to do a ton of takes, even if they love what you did. You're still going to do it a bunch of times. So I just don't worry about it. They give me notes. Hopefully I don't get any notes. I prefer not to, but if they give me notes, I'm going to take them, whatever. But I'm going to say, I don't care what you think about what I'm about to do. And I'm just going to jump in and play like that 6-year-old and understand that if I give them what they're looking for, cool. If not, we'll play again. But doing that for me just frees me up to just not worry about results. And because if I'm worried about results, I'm not present and in the moment, right? I'm not truly living with the other actors in the scene. Like when I'm doing a scene, I can't care what other people think. I can't care what the director, the producers think, because if I'm worried about how they're judging the scene, I can't be present in the moment and actually live truthfully with the other actors in the scene. So it's like I can consciously go back to my trailer and go, gosh, I hope they like that so they don't cut my scenes and maybe they hire me again. But in the moment, it's just got to be truthful and honest and truly there. The magic, for me, the magic has to happen in the happening, in the back and forth right there. And hopefully the camera's capturing the magic when it happens. And again, if it doesn't, I'll run the camera again. It's my kind of approach to it.
Yeah. My overall goal is to help people find tools and processes that can increase your health and wellness, all while building the life you desire. You all know how important ingredients are to me, and that's why I want to share Organifi with you. I use a lot of their tools, and here's why. All of their products are USDA organic, certified gluten-free, glyphosate residue-free, non-GMO verified, and supported by Vitamin Angels. Everything is sourced from ethical farms and delivered in sustainable packaging. You can go to OrganifiShop.com and use code WEST20 for a whopping 20% off. Now back to the show. Yeah, do you remember? Do you ever hear that story of like Marlon Brando where he was doing a stage play and he drops this glove and on the stage play he like bends over and picks up the glove and apparently everyone was just like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And I'm like, he picked the glove up, but at the time, of course, breaking what the script was telling you to do was just amazeballs, and every time I hear someone tell that story, I'm just like, but he picked up the fucking glove fell. You're
That's the way it
supposed to
up.
pick
Yeah.
it up if it falls,
Exactly.
aren't you?
Exactly.
So I have it, and please feel free to use this. You can adjust the name, but I have an exercise I'll do in class when I have
Mhm.
someone that's very searching for the approval, and it's called "Fuck you,
Yep.
Dean." And I will have you stand in class and say "Fuck you, Dean" until I believe it, because I last thing I want is for you looking for an approval or to do it right. Because what is right? That doesn't
I
even
gotta tell
exist
you,
in
dude,
life.
I gotta send this. Like I said, just finishing up an acting class now, and every single class I say there is no right way to do a scene. There's a
Mm,
when my dad passed away, we all the kids had different emotional responses. Was one of us right? No. When my mom passed away, we all had different emotional responses. Like I don't give a shit what the script says, right? As far as like what my emotional response is supposed to be in the moment. But what you're just saying there, like there's no right way. And what I noticed when I got started acting is I started wanting to get approval from the acting teacher. The acting teacher would tell me the way to do the scene, and I would take it as if that is the right way to do the scene. So over and over and over in class, I say to the students, if I were directing this in a film, and it was my job to tell you how to do this, this is how I would probably want you to do it. That ain't the right way to do it. That's simply one guy's version of how to do it. But I
hmm
like the fucking bean. I might just use that. Um, but I tell them that don't care what I think because you're not. I'm not paying my acting students, right? I mean, they're not getting anything from me. Um, but yeah, it's like if you get in that results oriented mindset where you're wanting a pat on the back. I mean, so many directors I think are on the spectrum, and you finish a scene, you feel like you were there, you had it, and they just walk off because they're moving on to the next scene. And if you're like waiting, you can always tell those new actors who are like looking after every take, the director waiting for the. But when I worked as a lawyer, and I wrote a motion, nobody reached out to. Really good job, Mark. It's my job, right? It's like
Right,
that's what
yeah.
you do. I got family who a lot of family are maids. Like no one's walking in every day and going, really good job with your job. It's just our job as
Mm.
actors is to do our job. It's not to get like patted on the back and tell us how amazing we are.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those things the talking about kind of that anxious
Mm-hmm.
approval. So obviously our world has shifted a ton over the last few years, but I would say over the last probably 8 to 9 as social media became the big deal, that's anxiety. Everything just started, rising like crazy. Sure, there's all kinds of things in our world, in our food, and in our air, and our water, and everything that could also be affecting these things. But how being reminded daily that the people you're watching online are having what you assume is the most amazing
Right.
life ever,
Right.
completely false, right? But to a young kid not knowing, your impression is, wow, everybody's got a killer life. What
Yep.
the fuck,
Yep.
right? And I feel like that anxious approval is something, again, back for me trying to find this way that people can use these acting and techniques and things to kind of adjust their own daily effects on life. That's one of those things that we can start
Mm-hmm.
applying. Wake up in your morning and remind yourself that there is no one to
Mm-hmm.
approve of what you're going to
Right.
do today. You not getting something done, that fucks you. No one else. You're not slowing
Right.
them down. You're not making their lives better. Heck, 90% of the thoughts going through our brain is our own selves giving our own selves a
Mm-hmm.
hard time. It has nothing to do with anyone. No one's thinking about you when
Exactly.
they go home.
Exactly.
Same for, your callbacks and auditions. The casting director's not at home thinking about what if they would have done it. I always like the making sure that first couple seconds of your audition's killer, and then the one actor that's like, right, but if you just give it a second, do you think do you think casting's going? Hold on, he gets
Yeah.
real good in a
Exactly.
second.
Exactly. He's
No.
sandbagging. He's saving the best for last.
Just or the ones that put that killer reel together and they're like, yeah, but wait till
It
the
blows
last
me
scene.
away when
I'm
yeah,
not
just
making
start with
it.
your best. Start with your best. Yeah.
if you want them to stick around, let them at least stick around while they're seeing the good stuff, and they can find their way out of
Absolutely.
there. But yeah, that's one of the things I've always kind of thought for our daily as well, is finding that that I call it the less fucks
Yeah.
given, and if you could apply that to your daily, how wonderful.
I mean,
Um,
now the problem
like I,
with me is I have very much applied that in my real life, and it means that most of the time I verge on on looking homeless because I just don't care. You know what I mean? I just really don't care.
yeah,
And but yeah, I feel so bad for those young folks who are coming up in the social media era because it is all bullshit, and it's this cultivated life. Like remember back in the day, I don't know if you had these friends, but I had friends who would every Christmas or New Year's, they would send like this letter with a picture of their family, and they kind of give the highlights of their year. And I had a couple buddies do that. I call them like, motherfucker, I know you. This is bullshit. Like, this is like the most fairy tale version of your past years. Like, don't send this shit, you know. But that's social media, you know. I remember like years ago, I was talking to my mom about something, and I don't remember exactly what the details were, but I remember her saying, "Mark, you wouldn't understand. Everything just works out for you." I was like, what are you talking about? Like, mom, like 99% of the things I try fail miserably. I just don't talk about the 99% of the things that fail miserably. You know, if I post something on social media, generally speaking, it's going to be something, it's going to be one of those rare wins, right? Uh,
right.
I'm not going to post about the 90 auditions I do that I don't book. I mean, like, who cares? But it can give that sensation that like I tell people, like I live a life that I love, but it is very boring. Like I wake up, I go to the gym, and I work. I happen to love work, but it's what I do. And I have even good friends who assume like when I'm out of town working on a film or TV show, I'm partying every night. I'm like, dude, I'm
Living it
learning my
up.
lines for the next day, and I'm getting in bed because I got a 5:30 a.m. call time. Um, but again, I don't post about that stuff, and we're
Yeah.
adults, like so we're not that. I mean, some people are affected more than others, but yeah, but 16, 17 year olds where they already have that, it's such a rough time in life to go through, and they're looking at, like you said, these other people that from their Instagram posts they're living this perfect magical life, or they have a perfect magical body that's been photoshopped, or whatever it may be, and it's like, um, I can't imagine how hard that must be for them, and I feel very bad for them because at least you and I have some semblance of what the world was like before that became the norm.
Yeah. Yeah, that freedom of just going, doing, living your life, not really knowing what
Yeah.
time you were getting home or if anybody gave a shit if you got there
I
at the
tell you another
time you
thing. Like,
did.
thank God there wasn't social media when I was 18, 19, 20, because the stupid shit that I would have posted that would have haunted me now.
Oh my
You know what I mean?
God.
Like now. Oh yeah, like if
Especially
you're an
now.
18-year-old kid and you post something stupid, 10 years from now that can screw you. And it's like, man, it's like every once in a while I'll run into someone I knew from high school, whatever. And this happened to me recently. I ran a good dear friend from high school I had not seen in a long time is actually taking one of my acting classes, which is so cool. And he said after class the other night, he started telling this other student about, he's like, oh, the thing I remember most about you, Mark, is when you beat this dude up in high school. And it did not cross my mind in a long, long time on purpose, right? Because it's one of my
Right.
most shameful moments in my personal life, right? And thank God there weren't many people who were aware of it. But if that had been social media and someone had filmed it, you know what I mean? That would have followed me the rest of my life. Something that I now look back on with such like,
Mm-hmm.
oh God, those things you do in life that you just regret so much. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But I had the wonderful ability to do stupid shit and it not trap me and stick with me the rest of my life. And these poor kids today don't have that. Like they are stuck
No.
forever with anything that goes online.
And we could say stupid things, but a kid, you got the chance
Yeah.
to be a kid. And I think that's being able to make mistakes, especially from where
Yeah.
we're coming from in this industry. That's
Mhm.
where you learn. That's where you get all these things. This cancel culture with going back and finding all the things that everybody's ex said or whatever it was or their view at the time. You can't find a politician that didn't have crappy views before they decided, oh, here's
Right.
what I am now because the base
Right.
decided that. And that that freedom, I think, is where you got to figure out,
Hmm.
explore, and figure out who
Right.
you are. But right now, all you can really do is try to mimic what your
Right.
friends are doing and hope
Right.
that's okay. If 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 you didn't do things stupid or things that weren't as if you didn't get better since back in the day, then nobody's doing
Right.
this stuff right. I think that's the point. There should be stuff in your past that you think is completely
Mm-hmm.
stupid and ridiculous. But if you don't get that chance, I was gonna. So the when you were talking about not giving too many shits, and it spawned a story, a memory that I had when I don't know how long I had been in LA at this point. And you know my personality, I tend to be a little stupid with things. I don't I don't know what made me think this was a great idea. Now I think it's fucking hilarious that I did this, and I don't even remember what reps I was with at the time, but I I took a Polaroid camera and took a series of poop photos,
Oh my God. That is
and for
awesome.
Christmas I sent out a card that said, "I hope you get all the shit you want for Christmas," and sent it to like some of my good friends and reps or whatever. And I just remember having that conversation with my rep. And they're like, "Who did you did not send this to casting, right?" I'm like, "No, no." And they're like, "Oh my God, Dean." They're like, "Just call me before you do anything."
Yeah.
But yeah, and
But here's the thing. Part of living life is being stupid. Like none of us are born perfect. And
no.
I mean, my God, I was as far from perfect as you can be. And I still say plenty of stupid
Hmm.
things, right? I mean, my nieces tell me all the time I use words that I'm not supposed to use, like stupid. Like I often say, that's really stupid. I guess you're not supposed to use that word anymore. But you got to be able to be dumb or be stupid or make mistakes to learn from it. Like, I mean, nobody's sitting on this like council of like perfection. Like, my God, we're all screwed up. Um, again, like I'm not a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm not a Christian, but I love so many stories from the New Testament, and the idea of like Paul, who accounts for the biggest chunk of the New Testament, was hunting down and killing Christians, right? And has this epiphany. Can you imagine that today, right? Like a dude who hunted down and killed people goes, I was wrong about that. I'm actually gonna like help. I'm gonna change things a little bit. Like that to me is just like holy shit. Like that's astonishing, right? That's astonishing that uh, someone can have such a change of mind and realize, oh my God, I was so wrong, and now I'm going to make different choices and take a different path, right? Like I love that story. I just love it because again, if anyone runs into people I knew when I was 23, they don't know me, right? And I feel embarrassed in many ways about the dude I was at 23,
Yeah,
right? And I think probably many guys
as
do,
we should.
many guys do, as we should,
Yeah,
because we do lots of stupid things, right? But you got to be able to grow and learn and change. That's the beauty of being a human.
yeah. I'm gonna read a line. You tell me what pops into your head. Know the rules
So,
so that you can break them.
truth.
I love it.
I mean, here's the
Yeah.
deal. And again, I tell this to students all the time. Rules are for stupid sheep to keep them from falling off of cliffs. I'm not a stupid sheep, right? So almost, there's a distinction between law and modesty. Don't break the law.
Sure.
Uh, you don't go to jail. But rules, almost every rule I see, I just I approach rules, especially in the entertainment industry, the same way I approach a stop sign in the country. Nice suggestion. I'll consider it, but considering the circumstances, I may ignore it, right? And that's how I move through the world. And I had someone take my class, brand new actor, a month ago. He started class, and he said, "Hey, I really want to get an agent, but all these agents, I go to the websites, and it says I have to have referrals from industry, I have to have a demo, all this list of shit." I was like, "Well, I've never looked at a agency's website to see what they ask for or not because I don't give a shit what they're asking for, right?" And I said, "Just ignore that." And I gave him a little help with like putting together his email or whatever. And he reached out and he signed with an agent within 1 month because
Sorry. Good.
Sorry, I thought I had me on my back.
Yep, there we are.
Okay. So he signed with an agent because he just ignored their rules about what you can or can't do. Every audition I get, for the most part, has big bold across the top that says, "Do not use props." I use props in 75% of my auditions, but it's not because I'm trying to do anything for them. It's because it's fun for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'll often I'll book something and I'll take my scene from whatever it is a book and I'll edit it with the audition, right? Just as a way for new actors to watch and kind of it's really to show them there's nothing special about my acting, right? There's no magical. It's just Mark doing Mark's shit. And the number of times I do that, and I'll have 10 people comment on that post saying, "You're not allowed to do that." I mean, you do see them. I'm editing in the TV show or the film that I auditioned for, right? Like you do
I
see that.
booked it. Just to know.
I
I
booked
booked
it,
it.
so you are allowed to do it. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
that's my
the
take on
that's the ongoing with, casting directors write these things for new actors because
it.
if
Yep.
the scene says have a pin, you see I'm using it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's making sure, right? Let me
Yep.
do what the script shows. My coach used to always and still does is take your black marker and go through all of that stuff. Obviously if there's, mostly action stuff, but unless there's he shoots her in the face, okay, you're gonna have to do that. But outside of that, all the other, the tear rolling down the face and all those things, I tend to remind students, it's like, look, this is for producers that don't have the visual
Mm-hmm.
insight to let themselves be within what's going on. If you
Right.
visually go through this, you may or may not actually do any of those things. If they happen to happen because you saw they gave you an idea of something and that you put a truth in there that sparked it, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You did that from a truth. You didn't do it because the thing said so.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah. For
that.
me, it comes from a place of uh, what sounds fun to me,
Yeah.
right? And like the fact that a writer writes down, "Oh, Mark's character cries at this point. Water falls down his cheeks at this particular point, or he raises his voice at this." Like I just like your coach, I just ignore that because that's just one person's idea of how this scene might play out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just prefer to say, I'm gonna let the magic happen. Like, we were talking earlier about like characters versus
Being,
bringing
yeah.
ourselves. When I first started acting, and again I had a ton of work, all non-professional. That the most I got paid was like a Subway sandwich. I didn't even get to choose my toppings,
Yeah.
right? It was just like they just bring them, and pass them out. So I cut together my demo reels and I'd send them home to my family and friends, right? And they'd be like, "Holy shit, Mark, you are amazing. You played this character and this character and this character." It's all student films, right? Just not a big
Yeah.
deal. But they were amazed at my acting, right? Well, then I figured out the game, right? I figured out, oh, I just need to bring my truth. And now they'll watch my demo reels. And I have Academy Award winning actors in my demo reels. And they're like, it's just you. They're not impressed by it in the fucking
No.
least because it doesn't seem like it's acting anymore, right? It's like, well, Mark, you're just kind of doing what you've always done,
Yeah.
right? In those kind of situations. And I just think that's so funny. Like people, my family is not impressed with my acting in the least.
What do you find that you do when you are taking on character that obviously didn't have the same circumstantial life that you've gone through? What are some of the little
Right.
things that you'll play with to get your mind frame locked into kind of their world?
Well, there's a couple things I do. I use this thing called mini memories. I don't know if anyone else does it, but I've been doing it for a long time. So when I first got started, like I studied Stanislavski primarily in college, and I know lots of amazing actors who use that approach. But the problem for me is it made it very cerebral, right? It became because I'm kind of a cerebral dude, and so it became almost like let me make check marks as I go through the script of what my beats and my action steps and my object, and it prevented me from being there. I was in my head, almost like looking at myself do the scene. And so, I give you an example. I remember getting an audition years ago for the scene where I'm going to dinner with my wife for our 5-year anniversary. Nice French restaurant. And halfway through the scene, she asked me for a divorce. Right? So I broke the scene all down. Saw the part where she asked for a divorce. And I thought, well, I should probably cry there because the script clearly says that I cry. So let me think about my dead grandma. That'll be a good emotional substitution. Right? So I come up with this whole thing. And so I remember going to the audition. I'm waiting in the waiting room, and I'm just like going through this like 26 steps of shit I need to remember and like do it right, remember my lines, all this. Right? I walk in, I sit down, and immediately my soul stands up, steps to the side, and starts staring at myself and judging me as I did the scene. Right? So I'm literally like, as I'm doing the scene, I'm like, oh man, stop doing that weird shit with your hands. Put your hand down. You look like a fucking idiot. Stop. Oh, you just messed up the line. Oh shit, you skipped. Oh man, you're mumbling. Stop mumbling. Okay, here comes the part where she's gonna ask you for a divorce. Okay, think about your dead grandma. Think about your dead grandma. Try to cry. Fuck, you didn't cry, man. Fuck, you said you're supposed to cry. Wait. And that's the whole time I'm doing the scene is that, right? The scene ends. My soul steps back in my body. I walk out of the room, get downstairs, and I ran into a buddy of mine. He said, how'd the audition go? I told him everything I did wrong in that audition, right? Every line I screwed up, every word that I, stumbled over, my weird hand movements in the scene. And he says to me, isn't that a really cool painting she's got hanging on her wall she put up there? I was like, I didn't notice it. And he says, man, I love her eyes. Aren't they beautiful? I was like, dude, I didn't notice. And it hit me. 100% of my attention was on me. None was on the casting director that I was actually reading with and doing the scene, right? So I decided that I was like, I got to make a different approach to this because it didn't work for me. Again, not in any way for Stanislavski, it works for a lot of people. But so what I do now is I read the scene. I know what's going on in the scene, right? Now, obviously, I've been doing this a long time too, so just kind of get experience from that perspective. But I spend almost all of my time focused on what led me to the beginning of the scene and almost no time on the scene. So like once I see what's going on in the scene, when I say what's going on, I mean like literally what's going on, not like subtext secret stuff, right? I mean, it's like, okay, I walk in the restaurant, I'm sitting at a table, the bread comes, we're chatting, blah, blah, then she asks for a divorce, and then blah, blah, then, whatever it may be. So what I do is I try to come up with 3 super specific mini memories that inform my relationship with the person in the scene or with someone who's not actually in the scene but is critical to the scene. So for this situation, what I would do now is I would close my eyes and I would imagine the very first time I saw my wife's face, right? And I just got it so crystal clear. I'm in a flower shop for some reason. I don't need to know why. Sure. I can feel that moisture on your skin. In a flower shop, they had little misters going. I can smell those beautiful flowers. And I glance across the room. She glances and our eyes meet and it's fucking magic. 2 seconds. And I just imagine that viscerally. Like I'm sure you do visualization. Like I do visualization I just do the same thing. But I have this very, very specific, precise 2-second slice of life that I make real over and over and over. And the key is I visualize it and I trigger the emotions that come from
truthful, whatever. And that's I think that's the key is you didn't even, where most actors tend to go is they choose the emotion that's supposed to be triggered. You chose the moment and let that trigger the emotion.
Yeah. The next thing I do is I think of like that time, end of the first date. Every guy's been there when you're standing at her door. Do you go in for the kiss or not, right? That just split moment. You make the decision, you go in, your lips touch, electricity, right? I just visualize it over and over and over. And then the third memory I come up with that would be standing at the end of the aisle, church doors open, she steps in, the sun's coming over her shoulder. She is gorgeous. My heart is pounding and I am madly fucking in love. 2 seconds. So I create 6 seconds of backstory, but it's not up here. I have created memories that are inside of me. So then now what happens? If I was to do that audition now, I would do that work. I would show up at the audition, I'm waiting in the waiting room, and all I'm thinking about is I can't wait to have dinner with my wife. I walk into that room, I sit down opposite the casting director, and I give her 100% of my attention, and I live in the fucking moment. And at some point, she's going to ask me for a divorce, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to react. I don't know what I'm going to feel. I could just pour tears. I could be so hurt that I hide it with anger and I scream at her. I don't fucking know. I don't care. What I do know is whatever happens right there in that moment is organic and truthful and real, and she will be a part of it because it is happening in front of her. I'm not presenting an emotion, I am having an emotion. Scene ends. I'm going to walk outside and run to my buddy. He says, "How'd the audition go?" I go, "I have no fucking idea. But I know what color her eyes are."
Yeah.
Right? So every callback I do, my managers, agents, like, "How'd it go?" I was like, "Fuck, ask them." I had fun. When I see myself in a TV show or film, the first time I have any idea what I do in a scene now is when I see the take they use, because I'm not thinking in those terms. I'm not stepping outside myself and watching me as I do a
Yeah.
scene. I'm just there. And again, just trusting if they don't like what they got, they'll do another take. You know what I mean? They'll do another take until they're happy with it. But I just, for me, it allowed me to be truly there and present. And it removed all the, like the 26 steps of how to act a scene, right? Because I don't plan anything. I trust it as a human being with experiences who creates just enough memories, real memories, so not
Right.
cerebral thoughts, but memories. Those are bouncing around inside of me. And if I'm a human being and I'm truly present and connected, those are just going to get touched, right? And they will trigger something truthful. And I don't worry what that truthfulness is. I mean, I was working on a film. It's funny you mentioned the crying thing. I was doing a film a couple years ago in LA, and they're going to do a scene where they wanted this slow dolly shot into a close-up. And the director said, "Okay, Mark, so I want you to start crying during the scene." I looked at him and I said, "You can go fuck yourself, dude." Like, I was like, "I'm not a robot." I was like, if maybe some takes, I'll give you some tears. I was like, "No, if for some reason you need tears for a very specific story read or whatever, I'll use a tear stick." I was like, "But I'm not, I can't give
Right.
you an emotion. What I can give you is truthfulness." Right. And that's all I offer. I'll give you truth. So for me, that's what I do. The other thing I do, because I do play a lot of guys who do very, very bad things, um, I always find a way to make them the hero in my own mind. Right. So like I played a Nazi officer a couple years ago out in LA with uh, Aaliyah Shawkat, who I watched her grow up on Arrested Development. So I loved her, right? She's a sweet little girl grow up. Well, now I'm playing this like Nazi officer who's like literally, she's the heroine in the movie. I'm the bad guy. And I could not play him, even though he was the most reprehensible human being I've ever played in a movie. I mean, he's literally a Nazi officer who is hunting down Jewish children to send them to concentration camps. Well, I can't play a villain because that dude did not believe he was a villain. He was a hero. And so one of the things I always, 90% of the time I play guys who would be considered the villain of the story, but they have to be the hero in my mind, right? So I figure out some way, some memory, something to tap into where um, I'm doing something, I justify my actions to myself. Because I think a lot of actors will fall into especially if they're playing bad guys, they fall into the trap of playing bad guys versus being honest, truthful, real human beings who are doing bad things from other people's perspective.
Yeah. I usually give this very similar to the example of, someone like a Hitler, which is, this is someone that to him thought he was trying to help the world or help his
Yeah,
race of people by doing what he's doing. And that's always goes back
absolutely.
to that love and fear, right? That's the human condition, the actor condition. It's always, can you find it from love? Because if you're doing it from fear, it's not going to be truthful. No one does stuff for a negative purpose whatsoever. Um, one of the other ones you just said was what did I just scribble onto this page? Let's see. No, doesn't look better that way either. Um, so this will go back to it, but one of the versions that Uta Hagen's version of that visualization is what she calls moment before, where it was the where was I, where am I, then what do I want, and those that's that one for me is what I beat down into people as much as I can with love. I use the word beat down, but you know what I mean. Harp on.
Yeah.
Can we find that? Because that is what's going to get you into the present moment of these circumstances without having to
Mm-hmm.
turn on or be fake.
Right.
And I'm the same way. I'm not focused on the outcome. That's like you
Mm-hmm.
said earlier. There's absolutely no right version of this scene, and hopefully you're gonna get different versions of this take. If you're doing it the
Mm-hmm.
exact same, you're definitely acting, and that may be what the
Yep.
person wants. I just can't do it. I don't know if you remember, even on our set, when if someone was like, "Hey, what's blah 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 line?" Oh, script, script supervisor,
Yeah.
script.
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
know. I have absolutely no
Yep.
clue, and that's most people's hesitance about acting. Talked to somebody this week. What made you take a break and not sure if you want to go back into it? I just don't know if I'm really good at memorizing lines. Oh, great, because I suck at memorizing
Yeah. Same
lines.
here.
It's just
Yeah.
I have to be in for that alignment to happen. And I always kind of say it's like a big jumble piled of dialogue up there that I have memorized. I don't know what's going to come out. Hopefully, that's
Yeah.
your job. You stimulate for me to tell you whatever I need to tell you.
I was working on this film years ago, and it was with Cruz, right? And who's the most intense human being I've ever met in my life. But I have a lot of respect for him. And I was getting ready to shoot what was my biggest scene in the movie. No one's going to watch the movie and go, "That's an amazing," it was my
Yeah.
moment, right? And so with this particular film, they kept rewriting the scenes literally every day. Like you get a new scene right before you shot it. So we're getting ready to do the scene, and the scene required to do it, and then we're going to take off and fly around and come back and land. And so I'm all like, "Oh God, I got to get this thing memorized. I got to do it right." So we do the first take, and Crew's like, "Okay, this time I want you to do it. Think about this." All right, so do it. And he's like, "Okay, now on this one, think about this." And we did like 6 different takes of like completely different ways to do a scene. And I'm getting more and more frustrated, right? Because I feel like I'm like, "Dude, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do?" And he looks at me and says, "I want you to give me options." Like, got it. Right? Because he's like, "Look, in the editing room," he goes, "I don't know what emotional moment is going to work best for the
Mm-hmm.
story for your character right now. Give me 6 or 7 different ways of doing this, having fun, and then we'll pick the one that works the best." And I was like, "Oh shit. So there is no right way to do this. It's just a way to do
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think a lot of new actors, first of all, they beat themselves up over shit they have no control over. Like I think I told you with the Savannah Haunting, I had always envisioned the role of Lilith as jet black hair, dark eyes. And I'd always envisioned your family as blonde haired and blue eyed, right? It just had, you write your
Sure.
script, this
Yeah.
is what you envision. And so our cast director, Matthew Sepik, had sent me Tommy, and he's like, "You got to watch her audition. She's amazing." And I see her picture. I was like, "She's beautiful, but dude, I'm not casting a blonde haired, blue eyed chick. This chick is dark hair, right?" He's like, "Trust me." So I watch it, and I was like, "Holy shit, she's really good." Right? And so we were trying to decide what to do with that casting. Now, here's the deal: like, if we went with, because if we went the dark, because I wanted a very contrasting look between Lilith and April, the two
Yeah.
teenage girls. So we did the callbacks, and we had 2 families pinned to the wall. Their headshots pinned to the wall. The term pinning, right? And it was your family, dark hair, darker features, and then there was a blonde family, right? And it literally came down to whether we went with a blonde Lilith or a brunette Lilith. Now, you guys were all amazing. We loved your acting. But if we had gone with the brunette Lilith, we would have had to go with the blonde family. And there's not a damn thing you could have done about it to make
Mm-hmm.
us cast you. And those people that we didn't cast, they were great. They just didn't look like you. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I think so many actors get caught up. Like, I'm sure this happens to you all the time, where an actor will reach out and go, "Oh my God, I nailed that callback." It's like, let's hold your horses. You have no idea what they're looking
Yeah.
for, right?
You might have nailed it.
You gave them what you might have, and you maybe did what you wanted to do, and that's totally fine. But you don't know what they are looking for. It doesn't matter what the breakdown says; things change. But once I started filmmaking, directing and producing, it made acting so much easier because I realized it is not about rejection and like they're saying you're not good. It's like you said earlier, no one's sitting around thinking that. They have a very specific question, and that question is, we need a guy or gal that can make this particular character come to life the way we need him or her to come to life. Are you the answer? That's
Mm-hmm.
it. If I see 100 people, I just need the person that's going to answer that question. Now, there's other things, maybe name recognition that might go into that a little bit for some roles as well. But anyway, I think so many actors, they beat themselves up over things they have no control over. If they let that go and just have fun and say, you know, I'm auditioning for my career, not for this role. I'm just showing them what I bring to the
Yeah.
table. If they take that mindset into it, they'll have more fun. I think they'll probably do a better job because they'll be free and loose. But long term, it's just much better for their mental health when they kind of lose that sense of like every single audition is a commentary on their worth as an actor. You know, like I'm sure
Yeah.
you're this way. I could do a callback today, and a director could look at me and say, "Mark, that is the worst acting I've ever seen in my life." It wouldn't affect me for 2 minutes. Like, okay, whatever, because it's subjective, right? I mean, I love Keanu Reeves. No one's going to accuse him of being a great actor, right? Does he care what I think? No, he's making $20 million a film,
Nope.
right? Who cares? So, yeah, I always try to let actors know, like, man, like, don't fret about stuff like this. If you want to fret about things, be an accountant during tax season. Yeah. If
Gosh,
you
yeah.
want to have, to me, acting at its core, we're playing make believe. You know, make believe. So it should be fun. Uh, that's kind of the take. If I want to not have fun, I go
At
be a
minimum.
lawyer. You know what I mean? Like,
You would have done what you
yeah,
were doing in the
exactly.
first place. I had I had a similar version of the audition where you kind of your consciousness kicked in and you just went, "What in the f are you doing right now?" It was I think it was Iron Man 2 or 3 or one of those. And it was I think it was in Atlanta and I started doing the scene. I don't remember what happened previous, like right before the audition. And this wasn't like, 20 years ago. This was 7, 8, whatever. I had been
Right.
working already. And for whatever reason, something had messed with me or whatever was going on right before, also 7, 8 hour drive to Atlanta. And halfway through the scene, like page number 2, I think it was like a 7 page audition or something. Page number 2, my mind went, what in the fuck are you doing? And during the scene, I didn't cut, I didn't stop, I didn't do anything. I just came completely present and started being human again. And I finished the scene. And all I could think after was this casting director's like, is he playing the character bipolar? Was that his choice? Because he literally just became a completely different human being on
That's
page
funny.
3. There's nothing in here about that. I don't know what he read. But yeah, it was immediate that I was just like, oh my God, you're that guy. You're being that actor
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Yeah,
And just kicked in and went
that's
back to
funny.
it. So but one of my last things for you, what and we kind of cover this going through it, but what is the mentality that really shifts you from the director mindset versus the actor mindset?
Those jobs are just so.
Because I think it helps for the actor to know
Yeah,
that,
like you mean like if I'm doing both on set or if just generally.
Generally, but I mean, yeah, you've done both. You've done
Yeah.
that before, obviously. So what is it that you have to check in
Well, I think
turn?
for me, when it comes to directing, that's a real job, right? That's a that's a you got a lot of people relying on you. You've got investors presumably who've given a significant amount of money that they're expecting you to deliver. Um, so I definitely bring. I mean, I try to have fun directing as much as I can, but I would say that I just bring. I tap into more of my legal background when it comes to directing, like prepping for a trial. You know, make sure you have a theme uh, that you're ready to present. That your team knows what that is. You're all going in the same direction. Um, whereas with acting, man, it's just fun. You know what I mean? Like I gotta tell you, like I have zero patience for actors on set bitching. Zero, right? And
Yeah.
if I was working this past year on a huge budget film that any actor would be you would assume would be very happy to be there, right? And there was a an actor who was complaining about something, like I don't a trailer or something completely irrelevant. And I said to them, 10 years ago, if these producers had run into you and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to be in this movie. We just can't pay you, and unfortunately, we can't put you in a trailer. You mind like just hanging out in your car during the set?" What would you have said? They're just like, "Well, shit, you ought to have done it 10 years ago." I was like, "Exactly." But now you're in a trailer, and you have a second AD whose only job is to make sure that you're like taken care of and bring you lattes. And if you're in the sun, they're gonna hold an umbrella over your head, and you're making tons of money. And it's like, dude, like you should step back and be grateful, right, for being here. That doesn't mean obviously there are
Yeah.
situations where safety and but just your general like
Right.
complaining
Yeah.
about lunch or craft services or like the size of the trailer. I've definitely had conversations with my reps from like, for this project, I will sleep in my car. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like I want to
Right.
work on this project because I just love acting so much, man. Like it just uh, there's something so wonderful. Like again, directing is a job. I like it a lot, and I look at directing very much like playing chess. Right, you got all these pieces on the board that you better make the right choices so that when you're sitting in the theater and that thing comes up on the screen, if it's great, everybody else gets a lot of wonderful recognition. But if it sucks, it's on you, right? As the director, it's on you, and that's a lot of responsibility. It's also very fulfilling when it all comes together in a great way. Um, Whereas with acting, man, I just look at acting as like I'm going to show up and play make believe and get paid for it, like I did when I was 7 years old. Like there is just I don't have bad days as an actor ever. But like we were working on Savannah Haunting. Those some pretty intense situations. Obviously, we're shooting during COVID, and you know 30% increase in our budget because of COVID expenses, and like it was not fun. It was stressful,
Stress.
right? I don't ever feel stress as an actor, ever. Directing, I feel a lot of stress. I say that'd be the big deal. Now, I try not to let that stress ever roll downhill to anyone that's working for me because it ain't their issue, right? It needs to stay with me.
Sure.
But yeah. But as far as how I switch back and forth, it's just I don't know. I guess it just the nature of the work helps with that. Like when I'm showing up to set to act, I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, I don't have a lot of responsibilities other than bringing this character to life in the most truthful, honest way I can. And everybody else got a lot of shit to do. The crew, the DP, the director, the producers, they got a lot of shit to do. I got one very finite job. But as director, like you touch every decision that's made
Hmm.
every single day. It's just very different.
Yeah. Love it. Well, my friend, I'm gonna let you go. Otherwise, if you got another hour or two, I could keep going.
Well, it's funny because,
Um, I always have a good time
but
hanging
yeah,
with
I
you,
love
man.
talking to you. This is wonderful. Alexis Nelson, my producing partner. Uh, I told her, I was like, oh, we'll probably be on the phone for an hour. And so she's the one who's been calling and kicking me off, off of this thing. Like, what are you doing? Where are you? Yeah, no, no, no. I was like, we're still talking.
I should have been texting her hate
Exactly,
messages.
exactly.
We we got to become pretty close because obviously, since the film got shut down for a period of time during COVID, her and I just became buddies of sending each other stupid stuff in
Right.
between and bonding over the kids and stuff like that. And I think that's having Alexis part of your family is
Yeah.
what I would call it. I don't know if you would have made it through
Well, dude, I mean,
without that powerhouse.
dude, I could not. The acting, whatever. Like I said, that's easy. I
Sure,
could
yeah.
not be a filmmaker without Alexis. Couldn't do it. If
Yeah.
Alexis called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'm done with this. I'm going to do something else," I would also be done with this because um, she fills in some major gaps in my ability set. Right, like I bring certain things to the table that I think are strong, but I got some huge holes. Um, and she fills those holes nicely. Right, better way to say it, but she
Yeah, go
she
on.
she has, and she's also very driven. Um, I met her freshman year at UCLA on a student film, and we were the rainmakers, literally outside the window, spraying water up onto the window, right? And I just knew, like when I met her, I was like, this girl is a badass, right? And we just hit it off and started working on short films and student films, and just kept growing. But when I wake up every morning, I try to like just say out loud 10 things I'm grateful for, and she is always one of those 10 because I would be lost without her. So yeah, very
Yeah.
fortunate.
And that what a strong, that's a huge strength for anyone in general, knowing your
Hmm.
weaknesses and knowing your strengths because you know where to double down and you know where to go. I'm gonna pass
Right,
that off. I think the ego gets in check with so many people because they want to try to do everything when it's like,
dude.
no,
I got
this is about as
buddies.
collaborative
I
as it
got
gets.
buddies who make films who don't take notes, right? And they're usually those guys who have like they're the director, producer, writer, props, location scout. They want every credit they can possibly get. They don't take notes, and their films don't get better, and they're not very good, right? And they just don't grow. Um, One of the things that came from my experience as a lawyer was sitting in a conference room with brilliant lawyers, right? Like I'm the bottom IQ barrel of this room, and they would still ask my opinion on these huge cases. And I just feel like, why? Who gives a shit what I feel? Like you guys are brilliant, right? And but what they taught me was I might catch something that for whatever reason they missed. And what they know is, at the end of the day, them, one of the lead attorneys getting his or her way in trial means nothing. What matters is do you win or lose. So when I'm making a film, you know, I never want to just be like, this is my vision and there's you just do it or get out. Uh, because I am flawed and often stupid, right? I want smart people, creative people giving their input. I mean, me and Alexis have wonderful debates almost every day, But because we're just 50-50, like we have to always come to an agreement. There's no third person
Yeah.
to settle the score. But because we respect each other and we respect each other's different strengths, you know what I mean? Like it allows us to we always
Yeah.
come to an understanding, and always should have an idea, have an idea. We kind of battle a little bit, and what comes out of that is better than what either ideas were to begin with, right? And I think finding people to work with like that in life, no matter what business you're going into, someone that you've got to respect. Like I've been working with Alexis now since 2007 on every level of project you could possibly work on, and I have never
Yeah.
hung up the phone angry with her. I've never had an emotional fight with her. We've had very fiery, non-emotional debates about film or da da da
Yeah.
whatever, but never personal, right? Never. I never hang up the phone and go, oh damn her, ever, right? And because I have too much damn respect for her, right? And I know she's coming from every issue from the place of let's make the best thing we can make, and that's where I'm coming from. We just work it out. So yeah, like I said, I could I
Yeah.
could do a 2 hour podcast about Alexis and her skills, and you should do a podcast with her actually. But
I might
yeah,
have to get
she's
her
awesome.
on.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's such a wonderful way to kind of approach it because it's to me it's like getting married. You were gonna have to figure out a way to get through this, and hopefully they've got those little perspectives that you're
Mm-hmm.
missing, and you slowly build up to it. I always love finding someone that has no clue about the thing you're trying to get answered because they don't have all of the pre-built ideas of no this is how the box has to be
Right.
built. They give you something completely off the wall you're like that fuck that might work,
Exactly.
and you're like how did you have no clue what this is, how did you
Yeah.
come up with that? There's no
Mm-hmm.
preconceived
Yeah.
box set that it has to
Yeah.
do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
Brother,
right,
this was
man,
great.
I'm gonna stop. I've got more but I'm gonna stop. We'll do this
Absolutely.
again. And everyone paying attention, all the information of how to find William Mark McCullough will be down below. I'm not going to make him do that thing where you give me all your
Thank you, because
socials
I
because,
suck at that. All right, my friend. Well, thank you for having me on here. It was an absolute blast. I always love talking to you, and hopefully, we can hang out in person soon.
That'd be great. I would love that. If you're ever in NOLA shooting something cray-cray, let me know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
All
right,
right, bro.
Mark.
Take
Peace
care.
out. If you are enjoying the conversation and would like to learn more about our acting and spiritual connection, go to thedeanwest.com and there is a course that dives a little more into the understanding of our universal connection. It then goes into a beginner acting course that is great for actors and any human that wants to learn a new way of approaching their manifestation journey. My first book, The Actor's Gift to Manifestation, is live on Amazon, and there will be a digital version on my website. And stay tuned, as The Actor Alchemist will be coming out very soon, followed by The Actor's Reconstruction of Beliefs and Empowering Perspectives.